Hey, everybody. Appreciate everybody hopping in today to VetSecCon 21. Really appreciate Jake and everybody for having us here. Jackson, thanks so much for this. We thought with this one, it'd be more of a discussion about kind of our journeys, who we are and what we struggle with. And ultimately, one of the biggest things that I think, me being a veteran as well, spending 5 years in the United States Marine Corps is when I first joined the military, I was overweight, but got into shape and was able to, kick butt in the Marines and everything else and do everything I needed to. But, I think what, I look at, and I look at a lot of other folks that struggle with this as well, is that as soon as you get out of that structured program and you're in your own day-to-day lives, you just balloon back up again. And, I hit my heaviest weights that I've ever been in my entire life. I was 315 pounds, had heart surgery. I had all of these different issues that I was going through. And this discussion here is to talk a little about our journeys and how I got help with Ben, and I'll have Ben do his introduction here in just a minute. But if you're not familiar with me, I'm Dave Kennedy. I've been in the security industry for over 20 years. Founder of Trusted Second Binary Defense, and really, my whole goal has always been share my experiences and try to help others with what we're doing. And I know in security we struggle very heavily with. Not just, our mental health, which is a whole another aspect and discussion, but our bodies and what we do. It's always a bragging right that in this industry that, hey, you're up at 2:00 in the morning and, hacking away at code and everything else that's out there, and we're not taking care of ourselves. And, there's definitely a mind-body connection that comes along with this. And so, today we'll just be talking about, what's worked for us, kicking out the diets and getting into a program that you can be successful with. That has worked for me and countless others. Chris Nagy is doing an amazing transformation right now. If you're familiar with him, Human Hacker, a lot of folks in the security industry are really taking control of their health and really, helping themselves get better with it and living longer. And this is kind of my journey. But with that, I'll kick it over to Ben. I'm just going to give a quick story on Ben. I'll tell you how I met Ben in the first place, which is, I'd gone through so much on the whole weight loss struggle, and I noticed myself losing control again and gaining weight. And again, I was eating salads and starving myself, and I couldn't figure out why I was still gaining weight. And I was doing keto diets and all of this other stuff. And, I really was kind of at a last straw with it, saying, I'm losing this battle with my mind and my body. What do I do? And, I happened to reach out to Ben. Ben is a personal trainer. And, I was interviewing a few different personal trainers. And one of the things that I noticed about Ben was, he was equally invested in my success as part of his success, and he cared about the success of the people that he was working with. And so, it was more than a trainer. We've become really good friends since then. But most importantly, his success is built off of my success as well, and making that a successful journey. And one thing I can tell you is that, since I've been through Ben's program and learning how to change my relationship with food, learning how to change my lifestyle, my mindset. Obviously the training programs and things like that are part of it, but it's been transformational for me to where I can see this being something that I can use for the rest of my life, and that I'm finally in a position where I'm confident in myself. I'm confident with my relationship with food. I'm the strongest I've ever been. I'm in the best shape I've ever been, even though I pulled my back the other day lifting up my kid's baseball shooting gun for some reason. I can lift a 505-pound deadlift, but when it comes to lifting up a 50-pound thing, it jacked me up a little bit. But I want to pass it over to Ben to give a little bit of his background. But one thing that I can say is that I've had a lot of success with that, and we'll talk about things that you can do to have success in your journey as well.
Thanks. And I can't believe that you didn't even make it 5 minutes before you had to drop in that you had a 505-pound deadlift. Like we didn't even get
half. I throw it in everything. Now, even when I'm talking like when I'm teaching my kids in basketball, I'm like, hey, do you guys know I can do a 505-pound deadlift? So
just at all times. But thanks. Yeah. And again, as Dave said, thanks for having us. And, for me, it's a great opportunity to just be able to, like I said, share my story and, help in any way that I can. My backstory is a bit different and entirely different. I was always the skinny kid. Never really fitted into my clothes. A long history of going out and escapism and partying and everything that sort of came along with that. And just decided that wasn't going to be the life for me, and something needed to change before I ended up down a very not nice hole. Started to take control, just really fell in love with it, and decided that, if this is something that I could do for myself, then it's something I could definitely help other people with. Fast forward now, coming on 5 years later, I only work online. Obviously, having met Dave and opened me up to a whole new industry and world of people. And actually, just a funny sort of thing that I've picked up working with people who have background in the military. The discipline thing's a funny thing for me whenever I have like the initial conversation, because it either goes one or two ways. It either has stuck with you the entire way and you continue to be disciplined in everything you do, or as soon as you have the freedom to do whatever you want, then that's when the shit hits the fan and everybody sort of loses their marbles on that. But yeah, for me, as Dave said, everybody that I work with, their success is my success. And, as they become better and as they become the best versions of themselves, it reflects on me and what I do. And we just are able to help more and more people. And obviously what, we've been able to do in terms of reach out to people with the podcast and do things like this, it's incredible to be able to be helping so many people.
I think that's what it's all about is kind of sharing our experiences of what's worked and what hasn't. Like I mentioned, when I was out of the military, I had tried everything. I tried every single diet you could possibly imagine, from Atkins to keto to intermittent fasting to you name it. I literally tried everything I possibly could to lose the weight. I was doing the Shaun T Insanity stuff from Beachbody. I remember at DerbyCon, one of the conferences that I ran, I'd be upstairs doing the Shaun T thing in my hotel room. And it was, one of those things where I'd lose 5 or 10, even 20 pounds. And then I would balloon back up again and gain 30 pounds. And it was always this fight with my own self, my own mind, my own body, everything else. And I didn't have an understanding of that. In the military, what was interesting about that is I remember I'd go out with my buddies and, we'd go eat at Jack in the Box, and I'd get the extra large shake, that eggnog shake that was like 1,500, 2,000 calories. And I'd also get like a double bacon cheeseburger, which was also like 3,000 calories, eating like 3,000 calories in a meal. But yet, I was burning it off because I was active all day long. And so you'd eat all this food because you're working all day, you're PTing all the time. And, as soon as you get out, it's like you're still eating the same amount of calories that you did in the military, but you're not in that structured program anymore. And they don't give you I never received a good way of transitioning off of that and understanding, how, to at least cut my calories out and things that I could do to maintain my weight or get better. And so I think, a lot of us fall into that where, you get the big gut and, you start gaining weight and things like that very quickly, because we're not in that same type of structured format where we're required to do PT every single day and, everything else that's going on with that. So, for me, I really struggled with everything. I mean, I health, took a turn. I had heart surgery, and really, my brain, from a brain fog perspective was going there. And it was interesting is, since then, and I'll talk a little about kind of what's been successful for me and kind of the program that Ben put through. But, like what's interesting is that, our bodies all work the same way, even though we have very big differences. But it's how much we eat and how much we expend from an energy perspective. It's just, at the end of the day, it's calories in versus calories out. But until you have a framework that you can put yourself into to keep yourself structured, I never had any success. And so I look at, I went through, I'll give you an example here. When I had my heart surgery, and I remember I was the chief security officer over at Diebold for a number of years. And I was in a meeting talking about some cybersecurity stuff. And all of a sudden, my heart started racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I started sweating. I became real pale and I almost passed out. And, I went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, hey, we don't know what this is. We're going to try to figure it out. So they put me on a heart monitor and all this other stuff. And they started figuring out that I had what was called low atrial fibrillation, which basically causes my heart to short circuit and cause a bunch of issues, which is like higher increased rate of stroke and all this other stuff. But I remember I was sitting at the table and my kids were super young, and I'm eating a bowl of cereal, and the heart monitor starts beeping. And I get a call from the doctor, and they're like, hey, are you like running or doing some sort of cardio exercise right now? I'm like, no, I'm literally sitting here eating a bowl of cereal. And they're like, you need to go to the ER right now. And so I went to the ER, and they were checking my heart out and all this other stuff. And eventually I had heart surgery to correct it. They fried a nerve in the heart that was causing the issue, the heart surgery, which was crazy, by the way. They keep you awake the entire time, which I thought was really insane. So I actually got to see as they're inside my heart. I'm like, you guys are like literally inside my heart. But I realized there that it was time for me to make a change and try to be there for my kids. And I'd struggled with all these diets. And so I decided to go the surgery route. And I got what's called a gastric sleeve bypass, which shrinks your stomach down basically. And, you know, I look back at that now versus now and saying, I really wish I didn't do that surgery, because the way that I look at things now, my perspective of things now is very different than what it was back then. And I dropped a lot of weight very quickly because I couldn't eat as much. But I'll tell you that sleeve was just a tool. And if you don't correct your patterns of behavior with that tool, you're going to be in the same predicament a little bit later down the road. And so what started happening with me is the sleeve started to fail. As time goes on, your stomach starts to increase again. And I was eating more and more food, and I was gaining more and more weight. And I'd gotten to a point where I was at the heaviest I possibly was. And that's when I looked out and I said, listen, I can't do this again. I already went through surgery once, and I'm getting back to the point again where and I was having a bunch of other issues, brain fog and just tiredness. I wasn't playing with my kids, all of these different things. And that's when I started researching Ben and doing those things. And the thing to understand about hacking your health is that, you know, for me, it was a decision to live longer for my kids and to be active with my kids. You know, I'm coaching my kids' basketball team now. I play, you know, games with them all the time. I'm playing basketball with them. You know, I definitely destroy them every single time still. You know, very competitive, even with my kids. I won't let them win. And I'll even cheat to win. There's someone out there. But, you know, it's one of those things where I never could keep up with that because I was always on the couch. I was always too tired. I was always, you know, whatever. And so, you know, I decided it's time for me to make a change. And that's when, you know, Ben brought me into, you know, his program, and what I've learned from him and what I continue to research and everything else just continues to grow that. And again, I'm best shape of my life. But Ben, I mean, if you want to go into some of, you know, how you structure the program and, you know, what's successful for people that may not, you know, have you as obviously as a personal trainer, but what they can do to really start this journey, I think is important to talk through.
Yeah. And I just want to touch on, you know, you always tell me these stories and, you know, send photos of this is when I did this, then I did this. And, you know, in the past year that I've known you, from the photos that you've sent me before, there's been so many different versions of Dave, big Dave, skinny Dave, like really skinny Dave, like bigger Dave. Like, so I can tell you've tried in frustration at a lot of things. And, you know, for me, I don't like diets as such. I don't like them at all, in fact. But I'm not saying that they don't work to a certain extent. So does keto work if it's done right? Yes. Does intermittent fasting work if it's done right? Yes. But I don't think that they are, number one, the solution to people's problems, but also something that can be done long term. So can it get you from A to B? Yes. Can you live like that for the rest of your life? Maybe, but probably not. Not in a living a full life kind of way. So for me, the best thing to do, or what I always try and do, is, you know, everybody that I speak to, I deal with them as an individual and I work out what's going on with their life, what they've tried before, you know, what their relationship with food like, what their relationship with food is like, what their relationship with himself is like, you know, their training history, things like that. And then we basically just outline what I like to call just a proper baseline. And it's not, you know, people come and they're super keen at the start and they're like, yeah, you know, I just want to train, you know, 6 days a week and do cardio and, you know, I'll only eat 1,100 calories and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, strip it way back. And the sort of, as I've developed as a coach, the greatest success I've had with clients is giving them as little to do at the start as possible. So as little change in their life, as little upset in their life as possible, and almost like lowest effective dose so that they can get the result that they need, or at least move forward towards their goal, but also then sort of get a taste as to what that feels like, what the success feels like, because 9 times out of 10, they failed at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 other diets along the way. So they almost don't have this belief in themselves that they can do it, or why is this time going to be different? So if we can sort of install like this baseline, they start to see, you know, some sort of result, their body weight changes, they feel stronger, they have more energy, more mental clarity, they sleep better, whatever it is, then they start to believe in themselves. They start to believe in me as a coach and me in terms of like what we're actually doing. And then that sort of puts us into the positive cycle, the positive relationship with themselves. I still to this day, I even think Dave has trust issues with me in terms of managing his calories. But every week he's like, I don't really know if this is the way to do it. But then every week we move forward towards what we're supposed to do. But, you know, whenever you build up that trust with the coach-client relationship, and, you know, I have a coach as well, so I understand that from both perspectives, then that can be absolutely, you know, invaluable, because the way that I sort of look at it for you, Dave, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you've just delegated that to me because it's not something that you had control over or could do yourself. So you put somebody else in charge of it, which, you know, entirely makes sense to me. In terms of being able to sort of set yourself up for success, again, it's just starting small. It's not trying to change 10 or 15 things overnight, because again, 9 times out of 10, you're going to fail at those. You know, it's just a case of, right, look at where I'm at right now, what areas am I not happy with, and how can I make them 1% better every single day. It doesn't need to be, you know, totally overhauled. It just needs to be, right, how can I manage my food slightly better, track my food, eat less processed food, you know, restrict my eating window if that's what you want to do. You know, there's ways to sort of just change what you're doing rather than totally overhauling your life. And I think the biggest sort of lesson that I can teach for anybody in terms of food is it's not always about that massive, in fact, it's never about that massive restriction. And, you know, any of the guys that I work with, any of the guys in the client group or whatever, you know, I'm always a fan of how many calories can you eat and still move towards your goal. So if the goal is fat loss, you know, I still want you to be eating as many calories as possible so that you have the energy to go to work, you have the energy to play with your family, you have the energy so that you can actually go and do your workouts, because there's a very fine line between, you know, creating that deficit that you feel like shit and you can't go and get your workouts. And there's nothing more frustrating whenever you have a sort of busy life that you carve out an hour of your time and you go in and you feel awful for that hour. Whereas if you can eat slightly more food, you go in, you feel strong, you're building a bit of muscle, and you come out of the session feeling good. And if we can create more of those feel good factors the whole way through the process, the longer you'll be able to do it and the better you're going to be able to feel the whole way through. And I think, like, the baseline thing, you know, I laugh again with Dave and we chat about it, you know, back and forth, you know, you don't need to do what he does. And I wouldn't recommend that as a start point. You do not need to train the way he does. You don't need to train as much as he does. And we didn't start like that. You know, we started with, I think, 3 sessions per week and just some cardio. And then it has just developed over time. Because again, if I had said to him then, this is what you're going to need to do, or this is where you're going to be, you wouldn't have been able to manage it, or you wouldn't have found the time to do it. And, you know, we probably said, you know, I could find 3 hours a week to get my sessions in, and I did that. And then you're like, oh, I can find an extra hour here, and what about we add an hour in here? And I'm like, right, we need to do less hours, like we need to pull it back. So it's being realistic with the time that you have at the start, that you can fit it in, that you have ticked those boxes and you're not feeling like you're failing at the end of the week. That sounds about right from...
Yeah, I think you hit on a key point there, and everybody, all of us that have gone through this, started off small, right? Whether it's just going in and doing 10,000 steps, you know, a day. That's my goal, 10,000 steps. You know, you're not doing anything crazy, not hurting yourself or anything else. You know, for me, you know, I started off with, you know, hey, we're going to get into some resistance training or weight training, you know, 3 times a week. We're going to get my nutrition down, and I'm going to get into a plan, but I'm going to start off small. But what I quickly realized is that I wanted to make this, for lack of a better term, my hobby, right? And I wanted this to be something where I could build and push myself to my own limits. And so what started off as 3 times a week and, you know, once or twice a cardio turned into, man, I'm really seeing some really good substantial progress with this. Let's continue this forward and see how far I can push myself and roll this, right? And that was just a decision for me. But if you are looking at, hey, you know, I want to lose 20 pounds and I want to keep it off, or I want to lose 50 pounds and I want to keep it off, or I want to lose 100 pounds and keep it off, and I don't want to be, you know, insanely muscular or things like that. You know, those are all different goals that we have for ourselves, and it changes over time too. You know, like, look, I remember when Chris first joined Hanegi, I think he said I can only dedicate a half hour a week, you know, to two
half hours. He could give me
2 half hours. Yeah, 2 half hours a week.
And I could actually see in the call, I feel like that was almost a test from him, because he was like, you know, he's dealt with trainers before and whatever else. And he was like, I was like, right, okay, how much time can you commit to? And he was like, I can do 2 half hours. And immediately I was like, right, okay, we can work with that. And I could tell he was a wee bit like, that's not the answer that I was expecting, kind of thing. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, and you know, with Chris now he's, you know, training several days a week. He's doing cardio. He's getting his steps in. You know, it's a progression, right? But I think, you know, when you look at where to start from, that's the biggest challenge that I think most people really struggle with, right? You know, you see me working out, you know, 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, sometimes multiple times a day, and it's one of those things where, you know, you look at that and you say, well, I can't do that. I'm not saying you should, right? You need to start off with understanding, hey, the habits that I have right now are the reason why I'm currently where I'm at and why I'm not happy with my progress, right? And so how do we change those habits over time so that you are happy with who you are and your progress and your health and everything else. And so it's a long-term vision, short-term things that you have to do to correct it. And we if you're not familiar with our podcast, we have a podcast out called We Hack Health. It's, if you go to https wehack.health, and it's on Spotify and everything else, it's called Hacking Your Health Podcast. And so we go through all of the ins and outs of what you need to do mindset wise, resistance training wise, eating, nutrition, all that other stuff that comes along with it. And we just did a episode on supplements, and our first caveat with supplements aren't going to fix anything out there for you. You're going to have to do that yourself through nutrition and everything else. And Genevieve has a question here that he said, he's that they had gained over 14 kilos from chemosteroids and can't seem to lose the weight now. So when you're looking at losing weight, if weight loss is your desire, you need to understand what we call your total daily energy expenditure is. And when we get down to nutrition, before I get into this, you need to understand how many calories you burn a day, and how much you need to put yourself into a deficit to lose those. But you also want to track your nutrition and what you're eating. So every time a commitment to myself, a promise to myself to not go back to Big Dave, is a promise that I can spend 15 to 20 seconds or 30 seconds at most adding in my food that I'm eating into an app before I actually take a bite of that food. And that is me understanding and a commitment to myself that, hey, I know what I'm putting in my body. I know the calories that I'm tracking, and I use MyFitnessPal for that. And what happens is I have a set amount of calories that I eat a day, and I try to hit a certain amount of protein, a certain amount of carbohydrates, and a certain amount of fats. And I think there's a big misconception that carbohydrates are bad. Carbohydrates are your energy. You need carbohydrates. Eat carbs, but do it within moderation. Don't eat 4,000 carbs if your total daily energy expenditure, which we'll talk about, is 2,000 calories, right? So you need to be able to do it within a certain framework that you put yourself into. And there are what are called total daily energy expenditure calculators. And I posted a link in the chat there, which is the my Hacking Health, my journey, and everything else. It has the calculator in there that you can use, but you enter your age, your level of activity. If it's nothing, it's fine. Male versus female, calorie count's a little bit different. And what happens is it'll give you a set baseline of what your calories are that you burn on a daily basis. And so what you want to do with that is you want to start to just put yourself in a slight caloric deficit where, let's just say your total daily energy expenditure is 2,000 calories. Well, start off with 1,800 calories and see if you lose a pound or two a week. If not, bring it down to 1,700. Minor changes. Think about 100 calories. 100 calories is 700 calories total per week that your body's not getting used to. So you're making these slight changes. And this is the thing that Ben, as I always talk about Ben and his dark magic that he has there. I started off, I think the lowest we went was probably 2,000 calories, I think, right? Was it?
Yeah.
And
only because I wouldn't let you go any lower. You were like, I just want to see what happens. And I'm like, I'm not promoting this in any way, shape, or form. You're like, but I just want to see if I can do it. I'm like, I know you can do it, but that's not why we're here. Like, that's not sustainable.
And that's the thing. You need enough calories to get you to do the energy and the things to get you through the day, but you don't need 1,000 calorie surplus every single day, which causes you to gain weight. So it's numbers, it's tracking, and it may seem complex at first, but believe me, if you do this for a few months or a few weeks, and start to go through all of this, it starts to become a habit that again, you can put yourself into this framework for the rest of your life. And like I said, I track everything. I know, how many calories I'm eating. I know my macronutrient breakdown, which is protein, carbohydrates, and fats. I know exactly where I need to be at for the day, or if I need to eat a bunch or a lot less. Now, I will tell you, where I'm at now is very different than where I was a year ago. I'm eating 3,700 calories a day in order to maintain the muscle that I've been able to build over the past year and the training programs that I'm in. My total daily energy expenditure is probably around 3,400 calories, and I'm in a surplus to eat as many calories as I possibly can. So, when you look at what you're eating, you can still eat what you want to, just do it within moderation. Okay. So for me, the general rule of thumb, and again, this is all documented, but you want about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And then when I say per pound of body weight, that's what your normal body weight should be. So if it's 200, if your desired weight, let's just say, is 210 pounds, you want to eat about 210 grams of protein per day or close to that. And then you break down your other macronutrients of fats and carbohydrates between those. And so again, you want to be able, and I'll just tell you, food is documented everywhere. If you go out to eat, usually they have the calorie counts on there or the nutrient breakdowns on their website, or it already be added in MyFitnessPal, which has one of the largest databases out there. So track your calories and understand what you're putting in your body and get more refined. And then from there, you start to break everything down from an energy perspective of what you can do. Does that make sense, Ben?
Yeah. And the point that I want to make on that is, and the biggest issue that I see people face is they track all the data, but they don't actually know what to do with it. So, people are coming to me and they're like, oh, I've been tracking my food on MyFitnessPal for the past 5 years, but I haven't lost any weight. It's not just a case of tracking your food so you have a record of it. It's knowing how to change it to move closer towards your goal. So, exactly what you said, it is data. And I am a big fan of a lot of data. Now, do I need to track as much as I do? Probably not, like day-to-day people, whatever. But in terms of like knowing exactly what you're consuming from a calorie perspective, exactly what your output is in terms of training, in terms of doing cardio, in terms of doing steps, knowing all these things, and then sort of looking at the week and seeing how your body responds, or a week or 2 weeks, whatever it is. If your goal is weight loss and you eat 1,800 calories a day for 2 weeks, you do 10,000 steps a day for 2 weeks, you train 3 times a week for 2 weeks, and nothing has changed, then make a change at that. So whether it is a case of you do slightly more cardio, you increase your steps to 12,000 a day, or you drop your calories by 100 calories, you need to make the changes to adapt towards your goal. And the same on the other way, even if we speak about where you're at now, and you made a good point that we actually need to eat that amount of calories to maintain what you're at. I would say that if I drop your calories even by a couple of hundred, you would begin to lose weight, because we're at that point that your body actually needs the fuel, it needs the food. So it's not just about tracking it, it's about knowing actually what to do with it and where to take it. Just to sort of touch on what Darren has said here about the biggest issue is this and having a good meal plan. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with meal plans. Now, I work really well on them and I really enjoy it. It works well for me. I can become like robotic with food, and that's not an issue. But day to day, I don't think they're good for a lot of people because it's too restrictive. And exactly what you're saying there, you eat the crap on top of it, and it's probably because it doesn't include the crap that you actually enjoy. If Dave came to me today and said, look, can you build me out a meal plan? The first thing that I would do is, right, well, what do we want to keep in? Like, what are your non-negotiables? Is it donuts? Is it pizza? Is it hard seltzers? Whatever it is. And those things that you would automatically think, I need to take those out, you keep those in, because that will give you more longevity in terms of what you're actually doing with your food. And that's why I favor tracking over actually having a meal plan, because with the tracking, you have more freedom with your food. You have, I'll always say 80% whole foods, something that's either been grown in the ground, been alive, single source, unprocessed foods, 80% of that throughout the week or throughout the day. And then 20% party time, literally do whatever the hell you want with. If you want to eat donuts, if you want to eat cake, if you want to eat pizza, whatever. And you can do that on a daily basis, or you can do that on a weekly basis. And that 20%, if you're eating 2,000 calories a day, that's 400 calories a day. It is quite a substantial amount. And that, almost if you think of it as your sanity calories, whether it is, people come to me all the time like, oh no, I need to eat chocolate every day. And I'm like, all right, well, really chocolate every day? Like, it's not, it's not an issue. But it's either the knowledge of that, or at least having somebody tell you that that's okay, because, for so long you've been super restricted in terms of your diet. You've been super restricted in terms of your calories. You've been told you can't do this, you can't do that. And that's where the relationship with food comes in. And that's a good point that, we had that conversation on Thursday night with you.
Yeah, Thursday, it was interesting. I was talking to Ben, and I remember when I first started this program, I had little trust in myself on food, right? And just because historically food has been my issue, right? The portion size is what I eat, how much I eat of it, the calories I'm inputting in. And it takes a long time to break that relationship with food, because you have to look at food as, there's a book that I have back here. Where is it at? It's right here. Aubrey Marcus's Own the Day. I'd heavily recommend. Ben recommended this to me, and I'd heavily recommend reading it, because there's a saying that Aubrey said, which is, I totally forgot what he said.
You are what your food at.
Yeah. You are what you ate, which is one piece there. But also, when you look at what my relationship with food was, it was one of those things where I was living to eat, not eating to live, which is the big piece there, right? And so I remember I went to this was probably like I think 4 months into me with Ben, and I went to a poker night with a couple of my buddies, and I just ate whatever. I totally broke my program. I ate way more calories than I should have. And the next day, I talked to Ben. I'm like, listen, I'm gonna punish myself. I'm gonna starve myself. I'm gonna work out 6 times today. I can't believe I did this. I'm failing. All this other stuff. And Ben's like, dude, it's one freaking day. Who cares? Like you're in a system that you can do that and still be fine because it's not a habit. You're not doing this every single day. You're focusing on what calories you're putting in, and one day is not going to break that. You're not going to turn back to Big Dave in one day. It's when it becomes a habit is when it becomes a problem. And so this last Thursday was interesting. I had Orange Theory in the morning. So it's a cardio training, HIIT training in the morning. I did my lift in the afternoon, and throughout the day I was super active, doing a bunch of stuff. And at the end of the night, I had basketball, which I don't normally do, but one of my buddies was off, and so I helped him. I helped his team out with some basketball. And I'd already hit my calorie count of 3,700 calories. And I was driving home and I was like, man, I am starving. My body needs food. And I was like, okay, well, I already hit my calorie mark, but I know I need food because my body's asking me for it. So I literally cooked up probably around 800 to 1,000 calories worth of food. And I only ate 400 of it because that's all I felt I needed. It wasn't because I wanted the food to satisfy my brain. I needed the food from a nutrient perspective, and I knew when I was done and I was good. I didn't eat anymore. And that relationship with food, I feel I've broken it. It doesn't mean that I don't enjoy food. It just means that my relationship with food is to sustain my body and my performance and my longevity of my life than it is with anything else. And that's taken me a long time to get to that comfort level of that. But we have to be able to track and understand where our calories are at in order for us to lose weight. It is, at the end of the day, a calories in versus calories out. Now, there are nuances to it and metabolism and things to that effect, but it is literally calories in versus calories out. So if you count the calories that you eat and you're gaining weight, lose some of those calories that you eat per day. And you should expect to lose between 1 pound to 2 pounds. 2 pounds is pretty extreme. If you're severely overweight, you can expect to lose a little bit more at first, but that'll kind of taper off and get more towards normalization or 1 to 2 pounds. But you should look to lose 1 to 2 pounds. And if you're not losing 1 to 2 pounds, then shave off, 100 calories again the next week. 100 calories is not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but it's 700 calories spread throughout the week, right? So the more that you put yourself into this framework of eating is really, really important. And there's so many studies on this, by the way, on the success of this. They've done it in mice, they've done it in humans. Caloric restriction, for caged animals. They took two types of animals, two mice, one that foraged for their own food and made their own food and then brought them in. The same ones foraged for their own food and brought them in, gave them access to unrestricted food, as much food as they could eat, versus those that were on a calorie restriction. And the ones that were on calorie restrictions maintained their weight, healthy lifestyles, everything else. The ones that had all the access to the food that they needed to became morbidly obese and had serious health complications. It's literally just putting yourself into your own framework that works for you and then kind of going through there. Getting your food down is really important. The nutrition is going to be probably your number one most important aspect for all of this. In fact, I wouldn't even recommend, you could probably do the steps and things like that, but get your food down first, get your macronutrients down of what you're going to eat, and start doing that first. And you'll notice a substantial difference. You don't have to do a lick of cardio. You don't have to do a lick of resistance training. You don't have to do a lick of anything. You can literally manage your weight directly from what you eat. That would be the first way that I would start off with it.
Yeah, and even with that, I would literally, and I do this is the way I work with clients at the start. I will literally just give you a calorie goal and a protein goal. How your fats and carbs are made up is totally irrelevant. And the reason that I have at the start, whenever I first started coaching, it was like very specific macros, and it just became a total shit show for everybody because I was getting messages at the end of the day being like, I've got 15 grams of carbs and 9 grams of fat left, like what can I eat? And I was like trying to work out these crazy meals for people to put together and whatever else. So simplified it to just calories and protein. And what happens after that is either it gives us somewhere else to go, because if we start at a plateau, then I can go, right, okay, well, let's have a look at your fats and carbs and what way they're made up. It also allows me to see what way you actually enjoy eating. People just have a preference that they prefer higher fats in their diet. Some people prefer higher carbs in their diet or whatever. But it also, the thing that I've noticed as well, and this, Dave, you're a prime example for this, is you wanted to know more. So it wasn't that I then went to you and went, right, okay, well, we're going to give you a full macro breakdown. You were like, well, what would my macro breakdown be? And how can we take this from, losing weight or gaining muscle to optimizing what we do? And, you need to sort of recognize that a full macro breakdown is if you want to totally optimize what you're doing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? If you're like, want to get really shredded or want to get, jacked AF, as we say, then it's whenever you need to start looking at the full breakdown. And I think the problem with the complication lies is with Google. Like, you can literally Google one article and it'll say one thing, another article will tell you the opposite in terms of, full macro, keto, intermittent fasting, whatever it is. And there's a lot of confusion that goes on with that. And for me, and for what we're trying to do, even with the podcast and the Discord server, is just give you the simplest form that you can actually go and do with actionable tips. It's not overly complicated. It's manageable. You can do it with family. You can do it, whatever it is. And it's just about keeping it as simple as possible, tracking the data and knowing what to do with it at the other end.
Yeah. And I think you had a couple good points there, is that, if you're not, doing serious resistance training, things to that effect, I mean, just focusing on calories is absolutely fine. Again, at the end of the day, fats, carbohydrates, and proteins equal calories that your body burns and uses to replenish your system. So for me, I'm in a position where I'm doing high intensity interval training. I'm doing, 10 to 15,000 steps a day. I'm doing, heavy lifts, in the afternoons. So, my training program requires high carbohydrates for energy. I do low fats and I do a lot of protein so that I can maximize protein synthesis for growing muscles. But, if you're not doing that, then that's perfectly fine. Now, I also want to dispel a rumor too, which is you have to do cardio to lose weight. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions out there. Now, I'm not just disagreeing that cardio is not great for you. Cardiovascular wise, everything else, it's fantastic to get your heart pumping and exercise those muscles. But just by doing cardio doesn't mean you will lose weight. What cardio does is burn calories, right? So if let's just say you're on a 2,000, per day calorie intake, and you do some, HIIT training, and you burn, let's just say 500 calories in that session. Well, your total daily energy expenditure is going to be increased because you've increased 500 calories. So let's just say your total daily energy expenditure was 2,300 calories. You're in a 300 calorie deficit, and you add cardio onto that. Now you're at a 2,800 calorie deficit. Now, the most issue that people will run into is that when you do heavy, intense cardio, your body wants to replenish those nutrients and eat. So you overeat. I remember I was working out at Orange Theory, and I would eat so much food afterwards, and I was probably pounding, 1,000 calories per meal, and I was eating way more than what I was burning. So just be mindful if you're doing cardio. Yes, you will increase your caloric deficit there, but you also need to understand how much you're eating as part of that to replenish, and not to eat too much, because you can absolutely gain weight while doing cardio. You can absolutely gain weight, eating healthy and salads and things of that effect, especially if you're pounding on, like ranch dressing. That's 500 calories per packet of ranch dressing that you're putting in there. So you just got to be mindful of the food that you're putting into your body as you start to go through this. And that's the big thing. Cardio is great for you, cardiovascular wise. I love cardio. I enjoy it. Technically I can get away with not doing cardio and just doing weight training and, getting my steps in, and probably build muscle a little bit faster with that. But I like the ability to be well-rounded and everything. I'm running 5-minute miles and all this other stuff that I've never been able to do as a person before. So my goals are very different. But don't think just by doing cardio you're going to lose weight, because that's not the case. It's calories in versus calories out.
Yeah, I think the analogy that James mentioned to us before, for cardio, you're burning fuel. With the resistance training, you're building the engine. And the bigger engine that you build, the more calories that you burn day to day. So like I said, Dave's now eating more food than he ever has, and he needs to, because his body
I eat food all the time.
Yeah, he's like, I actually can't get this food in. And, literally to the point that, even last week when you're checking, your weight actually is still dropping or has come down. So, you don't need to do cardio. You don't need to do your steps. You don't need to do weight and resistance training. You can, if your goal is weight loss, just manage your calories, but they all will play a part and they can all come in together. Cardio wise, I'm not a fan myself. I just don't enjoy doing it. And there's a bit of a joke in the client group about that, but I'll always keep it in, not from a, you have to do cardio for fat loss perspective. As Dave said, he's still doing cardio at the minute, and that's not what his goal is at the minute. It's from a health perspective. It's from a cardiovascular perspective. It's a recovery thing. Can I still recover in between my sets? There's no point in putting on 20, 30 pounds of muscle and you can't even get up the stairs. You can't put your shoes on because you don't have the fitness levels. And I think, knowing that and knowing the difference between what cardio actually does in terms of it just burns the calories, but with weight training and resistance training, you can actually build a better engine then to allow your body to actually require more calories on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I think the whole calorie piece about it is why I always consider the dark magic that you have a weird thing, because like when Ben's like, hey, we're going to pump your calories up during this training program because you're going to need it, because we were doing what was called power building, which is a kind of a combination of bodybuilding, kind of sculpting your body and growing your muscles through what's called hypertrophy, as well as powerlifting, which is intense weights, which is how I was able to kind of skyrocket my weights pretty quickly. There's kind of two different types of strands of muscle fibers in your body, ones that are for strength and one that are for growth. And so, you can kind of hit both of those so that you get larger, you look bigger, but you're also strong as well, which you can see a lot of these bodybuilders and they look freaking huge and great, but they're, not super strong. And so I kind of want to be a combination of both. Although as I get older, I think I'm going to go more towards looking really good with a shirt off versus trying to lift 505-pound deadlifts and pulling my back out with a 50-pound thing for my kids. But what's interesting about the whole calorie aspect is that, again, when I first started, I think I was at around 2,000 calories, and because I've increased my muscle, my total daily energy expenditure, because my muscles need those calories to function, have skyrocketed as well. So my total daily energy expenditure is probably around the 3,500 mark, where I need 3,500 calories minimum a day just to maintain who I am, versus 2,000 calories before. So it's very different. The more muscle you have, the more you're able to eat to sustain the body mass that you have. And it's very similar to if you're morbidly obese, right? If you are 300 pounds, and you weigh 300 pounds, well, in order to sustain 300 pounds, you have to eat that much amount of calories. It's the same type of concept, but just with muscle. So, the thing to understand with all of this is that your total daily energy expenditure of calories, if you're doing resistance training, which, I would heavily recommend for everybody to incorporate some sort of resistance training, even if it's, once or twice or 3 times a week is great. 3 times a week is fantastic. Doing more full body workouts and things like that, where you're hitting your quads and your hammies and your glutes and your shoulders and your chest and everything else around there, because resistance training will increase your strength and your body mass, but also it will start to build, that good tapered kind of look for you, as well as start to increase your calories, where you can enjoy and eat more things. And again, that's all we're trying to do is, be confident in ourselves, be healthy, live longer for our families and friends. And I'll tell you the big thing that has changed for me, that I cannot, I don't even know how to really explain it, I guess, is that the confidence in myself is completely different than it was a year ago. Going out in public, just knowing that I'm in shape and feeling confident about myself, taking my shirt off in front of people, which I would never do before. Like if I'm obviously at the beach, I'm not just randomly taking my shirt off to random people. That'd be strange. But I feel confident about myself and who I am. But that's the self-reflection piece. But one thing I will tell you, as a hacker and as somebody that's been in the security industry for a long time, my brain has never worked better. My brain has never worked better. I'm sharper. I'm faster. I can pick things up quicker. I have that mental clarity that I never had before because I wasn't taking care of myself. That mental mind-body connection, it is absolutely 100% true. If you're replenishing yourself with crap, your brain is going to be crap. If your body isn't firing on full cylinders, your brain is going to be crap. So, I would have fatigue all the time, brain fog. I'd have all these other things about this. And, I really think, from my perspective, that the reason why, this last year has been so successful for me individually as a person, not just in my life and family and everything else, but also in my business and what I do and how I try to help others. I have more energy for everything. And that alone, I can't say enough for, because as hackers, we do not take care of ourselves. We do not take care of our bodies. We don't make time for ourselves. And here's the thing. making time for yourself is not selfish. Making time for yourself is making time for yourself so that you're there longer for your family and friends, and for yourself to be more confident in you. You should absolutely take time to do something like this. And again, start off small. Do, 10,000 steps a week and start counting calories. You will see a noticeable difference. And I want to do a shout out really quick to somebody that didn't use Ben as a trainer and has had some amazing success. His name is Dave Maynor. You may know Dave. Dave is an awesome, security individual. I've known Dave for years. Dave is really into threat hunting, offensive security. He's at Dave_Maynor. Dave came to me a few months ago and he's like, dude, I have brain fog. I have lack of energy. I'm feeling like shit all day long. I don't have the motivation. He's like, what can I do? And I showed him my page. I spent an hour and a half with him on the phone talking to him. And it's amazing. Dave, I think, has lost over 50 or 60 pounds already. And when you hear him talk, he gets pissed when people say, what diet are you using? Just as I get pissed when people say, what diet are you using? Or hey, you can do this. It's a cheat day. No, I don't have cheat days. I don't have cheat days because I know how many calories I need to eat. If I want to eat a piece of pizza, I'm going to eat a piece of pizza. I'm not going to feel bad about it because it fits into what I'm eating on a daily basis. But what Dave did is he literally said, this isn't a diet. This is my lifestyle. This is how I live my life from here on out. And I know I can be successful with this for the rest of my life. And Dave's a great example of, if you just count your calories, you get some steps out, you're going to have a lot of success with this. And this is something that you can do, again, for the rest of your life. And I wish to God the military would have showed me this. I feel like our the way that we look at our health is so jacked up from a diet perspective. You just look at, how do I lose weight? And they're like, oh my gosh, go on this thing where you starve yourself for a month and you're going to lose 50 pounds. Lose 50 pounds in 2 weeks. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. You're not going to unscrew yourself in 2 weeks. If you want to make this a sustainable thing, just start doing minor things for yourself here and there to start to move down this path, and you will be successful with it. I guarantee you'll be successful with it. It's how our bodies work. So sorry for that little tirade, but for me, it just made a big difference in me. I feel so much better about myself, my life, everything else about it. Positivity, everything is just, through the roof, minus my back hurting again, but
that was nothing to do with me. I think exactly what you said. It needs to be a lifestyle. You need to make a commitment to yourself. And, it's a funny thing for me that whenever I'm on that sort of initial call with a client or whatever it is, and I'm explaining these things to them, they're looking at me like, you don't know me at all. Like, you're crazy. There's no way I'm ever going to feel like that. But being able to obviously see you in the way that you are right now as a prime example of it actually working, I'm sure that that's sort of what inspires other people. And I think that that's probably one of the favorite things about what we're trying to do, beyond just the coaching aspect, whether it's the podcast, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Discord, whether it's things like this, being able to help people. And, as before we actually started the podcast, and we had the conversation about it being a massively unhealthy industry, we are in a position here that we can actually change that. And that, to me, is far beyond, what I ever imagined I could do as a coach. Though I was originally a pisshead and wanted to get into shape. Like, this is not where I thought it would be. But actually having the opportunity to be able to actually help and, receive messages like this, and even what Dustin said there about being convinced, this is exactly what it's about. The more people that are sort of understanding, the more people that are seeing success, whether it's working directly with me, whether it's just from the podcast, whether it's just from Twitter, whatever the hell it is, the more that will ripple. And, it literally just started with a conversation that Dave and I had. It was just me and him. I didn't know anything about him at the time, didn't know anything about hacking, didn't know anything about anything. And now, the impact that we have, and the reach that we're able to have, that goes far beyond just that. It's that sort of ripple effect. And, to me, that's, it's literally, as you said, adding years onto people's lives.
Yeah. And that's, I just put it in the chat room, but, full disclosure, I don't make any financial money off of Ben. I don't have a referral program with Ben. I pay the full amount of training with Ben. The reason why I recommend Ben or somebody like Ben is because, for me, I needed somebody that could hold me accountable, that could give me a program or structure very similar to what the military did for me as a structure, that would make me successful, right? Because I was at rock bottom. Like I was not going to be successful in any way, shape, or form with anything I tried. And what has changed is that the structure that Ben has put in place for me is something that I can now maintain and go on my own and do. but I still like working with Ben because, again, I have somebody holding me accountable. I have somebody when I'm struggling for that day where I just feel like crap. I feel like Fat Dave again because, I ate a Pop-Tart. I have somebody I can rely upon, for those periods of time, and that builds my training programs and is looking at my progress. The thing that I love about Ben's program, and I know we're coming up on our time here, is that, it's not necessarily on weight. Like, so for example, I think the lowest I got down on Ben's program was like 195 or something like that. And now I'm at 227. And if you look at the pictures of Dave at 195 and the pictures at Dave at 227, it's incredibly different. And the 227 looks a hell of a lot better. And I feel a hell of a lot better than the 195.
I think we have two pictures of you at 220, and they're that.
Yeah.
Whenever you have two pictures that are the same weight, and I posted my own ones of these the other day, that you're literally the same weight, and everybody's so focused on weight and like, oh, I need to be this weight and I need to weigh this amount of pounds. For me, trying to jump that hurdle and get over that with people is a nightmare, to be honest. But whenever you do, and you can see, shit, right, I'm 220 now. I always wanted to be 200, but I'm 220 again. But my body composition is entirely different.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, the way that you've taken a data-driven approach to everything, we have weekly check-ins basically where we're, measuring ourselves, taking before and after photos and things like that. And I have this, measurement tape here, and you measure your waist and your biceps and everything else. And you can see, hey, my biceps are increasing, my arms are increasing, my shoulders are increasing, my chest is increasing, my waist is dropping down, my hips are dropping down, my quads are increasing. These are great signs that you're building muscle. And you're losing, fat. But if you didn't know, I remember I sent a picture to Ben. I'm like, dude, or I sent a message to Ben, like, I don't feel like I'm making any progress. I feel like I'm just stuck. And Ben's like, hey, I'm just going to show you this picture of your last week's check-in and the check-in from 5 months ago. Let's do a quick comparison. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, that's a different person. Okay. I'm back on track again. Let's go. So, again, it's not going to happen overnight, but you will be successful with this. And again, if you make this your lifestyle, you're going to be successful with it. And it's going to be something you can stick with the rest of your life. But I think we're out of time. Does anybody have any final questions before we wrap up? I just want to say thank you so much, everybody, for just listening to us in our journey, and where we came from and where we're headed. It's absolutely obtainable for anybody. I will tell you, I'm 39 years old, doing 505-pound deadlifts and kicking 25-year-old kids' butts at Orange Theory, because I want to better myself, right? You can absolutely do the same thing in any way, shape, or form of what you want to accomplish. Everybody's goals are different. But I can tell you that you can hit those goals with a framework like this, and it absolutely works regardless of who you are, male, female, it doesn't make a difference. Calories in versus calories out, track your damn calories. Make that promise to yourself that this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And take 15 seconds before you eat. Can you just do 15 seconds before you eat to add a little add on to your MyFitnessPal here and just say, okay, I'm going to add this specific thing here that I eat. And now I know I have to eat kind of a small dinner because I pounded a big lunch, okay, just balance yourself out and everything else will fall in line with that. But
yeah, I think you said exactly there, making the promise to yourself, make a commitment to yourself and actually commit to it and follow through with it. And yes, it's going to take time. It's not going to be, I'm going to do this for 2 weeks and then that's me. I'm going to be absolutely shredded and whatever, it takes 6 months. Like, how long did it take you to get into the position that you're in now? I can't imagine it was 6 weeks or whatever. So, take 6 months, commit to doing this for 6 months, and then look back at who you were 6 months ago versus who you are right now.
And one thing I'd recommend too is take weekly pictures of yourself, both front and back. And because, you may not see the difference, from week to week to week, but when you start to look at it and say, well, from, month 5 or month 3 or month 2 to month 0, you're going to notice some substantial difference, whether it's your stomach getting a little bit more chills and you can actually start to see some visible abs or, the flab off of your side start to go. I'll tell you, men, our stomachs are the worst to get rid of. It's the last thing to go. It drives me nuts. This little extra little thing you have here, but
not for me.
Those are things that you could do. But no, hey, really appreciate everybody for having us up here. And feel free to reach out to us anytime and join our community. Do hashtag WeHackHealth. At WeHackHealth and on Twitter, WeHack.health on social media. We have a Discord server, so it's discord.gg/hackingyourhealth. Check us all out. It's all in the links. If you go to WeHack.health, it has all the stuff there. But we have a community of people where we're motivating one another. We're sharing our struggles. We're sharing issues that we're having, or if you want to form check to see if you're doing things right, or you're new to it, or you have questions. We're always here answering. Ben and I are always on the Discord servers answering questions when they're daily. I have my own failures, and struggles. We all share all of these different things together. So, join the community and be successful with this one. And I just want to say thank you all for your service. Being a vet myself, it's a pleasure to be here talking to you all. Obviously Marines are the best. So thank you all for that. But I'm just kidding. You're awesome. But thank you all very much for having us here today.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just the last point for Genevieve here about pictures scurry, they can 100% be scurry, and that's why we do them. Have the scurry pictures so that you can look back at them 6 months down the line.
I'm good. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Catch you later.
See you, Ben.
Bye.